The 70th edition of the U.S. Nationals is sponsored by Peak. Peak original equipment technology matches all vehicle manufacturers' antifreeze technology requirements, and Peak has the perfect match for your vehicle. With their line of premium coolant specifically designed to match the technology and color requirements, as well as easy-to-read color cues on the packaging and label, and a list of covered vehicles make it easy to identify the right match for your ride. Find out more information about all Peak antifreeze and coolants at peakauto.com or using the link below. And be sure to sign up for our Peak US Nationals giveaway contest. We're giving away 3 swag bags from our friends at Peak Performance. Winners will be announced during Monday's recap video following the 70th edition of the US Nationals. A link to the form will be provided below. It was a bit of a challenging day here on the second day of the 70th edition of the U.S. Nationals. We came into this morning with high heat, high humidity. It was brutal for any of the Sportsman competitors that are competing today. We went through a couple of rounds of class elimination in the Super Comp and the Super Stock categories and so forth. And man, oh man, did a lot of these guys have to drive it. This was a challenging racetrack, not only for the slick conditions due to the heat, but the conditions inside the car. The weather showed about 90 with the heat index about 97. It's going to be worse tomorrow. I would expect the heat index to be in the triple digits. It was brutal today, and sadly, right as we were in the middle, I believe, of Super Comp class eliminations, the heavens opened up, as you can see behind me, and it just started downpouring on this racetrack. And right now the rain did stop. It rained for a solid half hour probably, now that I think about it. It started off with just kind of sparse but heavy droplets of rain, and then it just morphed into this huge thunderstorm. You had lightning strikes over behind the cornfield by the oval. There was lightning strikes south of the track behind the tower. It was a nightmare condition. It was rained out pretty quickly. They have announced pretty early on in the storm and in the delay itself that it was going to be canceled for the rest of the day, and they're going to continue at 8 a.m. tomorrow morning. If you want to know why, it's like, oh, they could have just dried the track off race tonight. There was a river running down both lanes of the racetrack, so no, they were not going to get this track done in time. Even with the lights, they would have been here till midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, and no one wants to deal with that. What we're going to be focusing on here today, however, is the Sox Martin Hemi Challenge. 24 Hemis entered into this year's event. This is one of the highlights of the Big Go weekend here at the U.S. Nationals. And once again, we saw some incredible racing here to kick off the 70th edition of the Big Go. In Q2, again, really hot and humid conditions. No one really thought that after the Q1 runs we saw on Wednesday afternoon that there wasn't going to be many improvements, but lo and behold, we were very surprised. We saw a lot of low 846s. We saw some 844s, some really fast conditions, and it improved as right when it came out for final round of qualifying in Q3, you saw some heavy hitters because the clouds started to roll in, and you saw some low ET start to be set, but not so much over in the top part of the ladder. We'll look forward into the qualifying results, and then I can show you how the class eliminations will be for tomorrow for the Hemi Challenge. Number 1 qualifier in the Hemi Challenge after 3 rounds of qualifying is Steve Kamel with an 8.424. He goes in tomorrow with an opportunity to go 4 in a row. Lined up behind him second is Bucky Hess with a 4.26. Had 2 really good runs in Q2 and Q3. Was in a 44 position as when they came out for Q2, and then improved it just enough, but not enough to take away that top spot. He loses it by 2 thou. Jason Lyon making his return to the Big Go ends up number 3 with a 4.61. Charlie Westcott in 4th. Anthony Rhodes rounds out 5th. Jim Pancake, love that name, rounds out 6th with an 8.508. J.R. Baum in 7th with an 8.525, and then rounding out in 8th is Jimmy Daniels with an 8.532. Down in 9th, you're going to find Eric Bell with an 8.544. Steven Yanis, again, if I pronounce these names wrong, I apologize. I'm not used to some of these drivers. He rounds out 10th with an 8.560. Lloyd Wofford with an 11th with an 8.696. Wendell Howes in 12th, an 8.712. Mike Skinner ends 13th with a 7.39. No, that is not the NASCAR driver. 14th is Jim Hensler with a 7.42. Steve Kent rounds out 15th with an 8.763. David Bogner with an 8.791 rounds out the top 16. Down in 17th, you're going to find Jerry Casson with an 8.826. Rick Johnson with surprisingly something that we found out today. One of the original 50 of the Hemis that came out. I think it was a Barracuda. I'm not possibly sure. I apologize. He ends up 18th with an 8.850. 19th, Dennis Bergeron with an 8.922. Jack Peterson rounds out 20 with a 9.018. Terry Irwood with a 9.031. Ben Kimberly with a 9.055. And then rounding out shotgun on the field, Cleve Stewart with an 8.9492 rounds out 23rd. Now, looking into your ladders for tomorrow, Steve Camelo is going to have a bye in round number 1. J.R. Baum is going to face off against Rick Johnson. Charlie Westcott is going to face off against Steve Kent. Steven Yanis will face off against Terry Irwood. Jason Line will face off against Jim Hensler. Eric Bell will face off against Jack Peterson. Jim Pancake will face off against number 17, Jerry Casson. And then Wendell Howes will face off against Cleve Stewart. On the other side of the ladder, Bucky Hess, number 2 qualifier, facing off against number 13, Mike Skinner. Number 8 qualifier, Jimmy Daniels, will face off against number 19 qualifier, Dennis Bergeron. Anthony Rhodes will face off against number 16 qualifier, David Bogner. And then lastly, number 11 qualifier, Lloyd Wooford, will face off against number 22 qualifier, Ben Kimberly. Again, I'll get better with these names as I go along, especially as we head towards Friday with the end of the Hemi Challenge. We did have an opportunity to talk to some of the drivers, including Bucky Hess, as well as your number 3 qualifier and returning Jason Line here at the Big Go. We'll hear from them here in a second, but first, a word from our partners at Peak.
Protect your vehicle with Peak Original Equipment Technology. Our formulas match the vehicle manufacturer's technology requirements so that we have the perfect match for every vehicle.
All right, so we're standing here with Bucky Hess. Bucky, you were literally my first interview when I came here 2 years ago. Now standing here 2 years later. We didn't get to see you last year. What was up with that?
Well, I actually got my private pilot license, and my check ride was the same weekend as the National. So after 6 months of training, I needed to do that. So I got that accomplished, and later in February I got my instrument rating, so now I can fly in the clouds also.
So not only are you behind some of the most beautiful cars here, not only that, some pretty quick cars we'll get into later, but now you're also a pilot. How have you been enjoying that for the last year or so?
It's so amazing. I mean, I'm 66, and I wish I'd have done it like 20 years ago. It's very enjoyable. It's very challenging. Just like this, it's the same experience, it's just a little different.
Speaking of this event, you won this event. You're the first person to win it. Now looking to 20 plus years later, can you talk a bit about what that win meant to you and what does it mean to just kind of see how this event has grown to the point where it's now one of the highlights of the U.S. Nationals weekend?
Yeah, from the beginning. I mean, when I won that first one, they brought us up the return road and they treated us like we were, Ronnie Sox. They did like the wave when we come up by. They took us over, they stopped Pro Stock, run us across the lane, took us over in front of the tower. Everybody's cheering up there, Bob Fry and all the announcers, Linda, and all of them. So it was great. And now for these cars to evolve like they have and me to be part of it, and now, I know my automatic was fast, but I knew everyone went to sticks because they're so much faster. So I said, okay, well, we can play with that too. I'll build a stick car. So the stick car we just built, it's only got 7 runs on it, but to be number 2 right now, and we're going for number 1 on this next pass, so we'll see what happens.
I walked over after that Q2 run when you and Jason both ran those 46s to jump up to 2 and 3, and you were smiling ear to ear. I'm guessing you guys reached that target you were aiming for?
Well, I made a great pass. Jason didn't make a good pass, so we know there's some left in his. Probably, some, I'm not going to say, but let's just see how it comes out in Q3. These are the worst conditions, you're going to run in. And to go a 46 in this, it's pretty impressive, especially for an automatic.
So just kind of talk a bit about how challenging this is from both a tuner's point and a racer's point, because just for me alone, this is brutal heat. And not only that, you're not going to have a slick racetrack. What is it like trying to tune around this to make these cars run those 46s?
Well, that's what we had to do. I mean, we looked at the situation from, I came from Maple Grove, was my last race back in May. I just don't get to race as much anymore because I'm just so busy with my business and with flying now. And I don't really like to race in this heat. I'd rather race in the spring and fall. But to make the we had to put a lot of gear in my car, and it liked it, and we got it up in the RPMs where it's happy, and it showed on the track, and didn't get over greedy. I left kind of soft because, there's a good chance of spinning. I didn't want to waste this run. So, there's a little more left in mine, but I think the stick car's got a little bit more too.
So you're going to be going into this Q3 run here tonight. I know you don't really want to talk too much about what you guys have left in there, but you have maybe a target ET besides just getting that 42 to go up to the top?
No, Camelo went a 44 for 9 on that pass, and we went a 46 with the 1 and didn't make that. So he's not very far in front of us. He made a better pass in the good session than we didn't, but it's just he's probably been down the track 500 times and we've been down 6. So, I'm sure he's got a lot more experience than we do.
Does it give you a bit more confidence knowing that even with those 496 more passes, you're still up there running right there with them?
Yeah, you got to be impressed with that. But if the team I got, Jason Line is the best as far as I'm concerned, and I want to show him how good he is. And so, let's see how fast this stick car can go.
And then one of the things that's also the showcase is that you guys have probably some of the most beautiful cars on the property. You talk about over 900 cars, and these 3 are pretty much all the way up to the top. Just how much do people enjoy these cars? Because I know for a fact, me and all my camera guys come here, and we look forward to seeing these cars. Just how much do the fans and the other drivers appreciate these things?
Yeah, they do. The media does. Fans definitely do. And they don't have to be Hemi cars, because they remember the old funny cars, how beautiful they was, and that's what my son does. And he's the best. There's no one better than Travis. I don't care. He paints them, he designs them, he letters them, he gold leafs them, and I couldn't be more proud of that boy.
All right, so one of the big stories of the weekend here is your return to the U.S. Nationals. What's it feel like to be back here at the Big Go?
That's good. Yeah, it's fun. It's certainly fun to be driving the Hemi car, so appreciate Bucky giving me the opportunity to do it.
So, it's been 4 years since you've been the last when you competed in the Pro Stock, but you haven't really been gone just only in a driving role. Kind of talk about what you've been doing these last 4 years within drag racing.
Yeah, I've been a little elusive, I guess, in a lot of ways, but I started a business with a friend of mine, and we're building engine blocks. We're making cast iron and cast aluminum big block Chevys. So. And also doing a cylinder head. So we're just kind of getting that rolling, and we're just started to sell some stuff, and we're it's been a lot of just a hard time getting it off the ground. Of course, it's a big undertaking. But we're finally getting there, and so we do have stuff for sale.
Speaking of your work within the motor department of these cars, while the Hesses work with these beautiful cars that have these bodies and paints put together, you're kind of behind the beasts that are underneath the hoods of these. Kind of talk about how this relationship between you and Bucky came to be to the point where you're now driving one of these things.
Well, we've been doing it a long time, and Bucky, I don't know, he decided he wanted a stick car, but then once he finished it, it didn't really feel like driving it. So he asked me if I wanted to drive it, and of course I said yes. Why not? It's a super cool car, and they're a great part of Detroit history, and I don't care if they're 60 years old or not. They're still super cool.
They are super cool. And I talked about kind of the work that Travis does on these cars. You've driven a lot of beautiful cars in your time with the Summit cars back in the 2000s and early 2010s, but I think this one might be on the top. Do you agree with
sure.
that?
100%. The paint and the effort is phenomenal. And when you look at it, whether you like that style of paint or not, no matter what, you have to appreciate the artwork and the effort that's put into it. It's really it's phenomenal. It's beautiful. The downside is, like for me, like you're scared to work on it. You're scared to be around it because somebody's going to scratch it, and then you're going to be sick, you know. So like it's it's almost too pretty to touch.
With it being as pretty as it is, does it give you kind of a sense of pride that you get to roll in something that you're proud to drive in? Does that kind of help when you roll up to the lines?
Pride / fear, you know, some of each. So no doubt. I mean, like, who gets the opportunity to drive something like that? Very few people. So I'm certainly grateful for them for the opportunity, and it's been a blast so far.
And speaking on the performance side, you ran a 46 here in Q2, bumped you all the way up to the second spot. Was that kind of what you're aiming for? Were you happy with that run?
Well, I mean, sort of aiming for the number 1 spot, of course, like everybody else, but no, you know, again, the car, that was the 7th run on the car, so you know, we're still sorting it out. I think they got a little bit left, so we'll see. We'll keep working on it, but just happy to make it down. And of course, I'm getting acclimated with it and trying to do a little bit better job of driving in each run. So, and we'll just keep chiseling on it. It's going to get better for sure.
And then one of the big factors always with the U.S. Nationals, but especially this year, is the heat that we have here. Right now it's scorching hot. It's going to be even worse tomorrow.
Yeah.
How much of a challenge is that, not only from a driver's perspective, from a tuner's perspective, trying to make this car work with what you got out there?
It's definitely a challenge. When the racetrack gets hot, it's tough, and you know, also physically and mentally, it's hard as well. You're sweating, you're hot, and it's just uncomfortable.
And you're going to be going out here for your next round of qualifying here in about an hour or so from what I heard.
Yeah.
Do you have any goal ET in mind just besides taking the top spot?
Yeah, that'd just be whatever. It would be nice to get the top spot, of course, but yeah, I don't know if it's doable. You'd have to make a really nice run in this kind of weather, but it's maybe possible.
And then last question for you, you know, you've competed here for a long time as a pro stock racer. With this being the 70th edition of the U.S. Nationals, one of the big questions I have for you drivers like yourself, what does Indy mean to you, and what does it mean to come back here?
Indy means 7 really long days. It's a marathon for sure. It's a tough, grueling. Indy's tough. It really is. It's a hard race to win because, you know, it wears you down, and it's just a long time to be out here doing it.
So that is going to wrap up our Thursday content here at the 70th edition of the U.S. Nationals. Thank you guys again so much for watching. If you like what you see, be sure to subscribe to the channel today, as we are going to be ramping up our coverage all weekend long here at the Toyota U.S. Nationals. We're going to be looking forward to tomorrow. We have an interview with Jack Beckman, a possible deal with Tony Stewart and Matt Hagan. All the galore, and then we're going to be looking forward not only to the pro recap, but I'm also going to be trying to do some Sportsman recaps as well. We're going to be looking at the pro mods, the super stock once you get down to the final 16. I'm not looking at 154 drivers. That'll be a half-hour video, as well as factory stock showdowns. We have a whole lot of coverage lined up for you guys here in the coming days. So if you want to be on top of what's going on here at Indianapolis Raceway Park, be sure to subscribe today so you don't miss any of the action as well. Sign up for our Peak U.S. Nationals giveaway. A link will be down below where you can sign up for that. Again, we have 3 giveaway items, 3 swag bags from our friends at Peak Performance. They have done a lot to help us this year, and they're giving even more to show you guys support as we celebrate 70 years of the U.S. Nationals and 10,000 subscribers. Thank you guys so much for watching, and until the lights come on a Friday night, this has been Mighty Mac. We'll see you next time.